Well, fruits. We've learned so far about some fruits that kind of seem like they want to be seeds. They only contain one seed, and they're dry, and they don't even split open to release the seeds. They kind of act like seeds. So these seed wannabes, they're indehiscent. That's what not splitting means. These seed wannabes include, well, the primary one is an achene. Achenes have a seed and a pericarp that are separate from each other. And so you can crack open the ovary, pericarp, and release the seed. Contrast that with a grain. A grain has the pericarp, ovary wall, and the seed tightly adherent so that you can't crack it open to release it. And this is a fruit that's found only in one family, but oh, what a family. The most important family economically, for sure. It's the basis for all agricultural economies ever since they've been civilization, or almost all. And the ecologically important too. There's a lot of grasses out in the wild. It's a very big important plant family. It's called the Poaceae. A samara is like an achene that wants to fly. It's basically an achene with a wing, and these are found in a lot of trees that disperse their fruits by the wind. And finally, a schizocarp is a special fruit that splits. It starts out as a Syncarpus gynoecium with two carpels, each with one seed in them, but it splits apart not to release the seeds, but to separate into one-seeded units that look sort of like achenes, but if you go back in time, they start from a special Syncarpus gynoecium, and it's only found in one family, the Apiaceae. Really cool family, about which more later. So let's look at some dry fruits that contain more than one seed. Some often. They can be one-seeded as well. But the important part is that they split open to release those seeds, or in a few instances, that seed. And again, the same pattern here is that there are some that are found in a lot of families, sort of a basic one, which is called a capsule. And then there's a few highly modified ones that are, or somewhat different ones that are found in one or a few families, including a legume, which is found in the legume family, a silique, which is found in the mustard family, and a follicle, which is distributed in a few different families. So let's take a look at what the differences are among, between, within these different fruit types. So a legume is from a unicarpellate gynoecium. In fact, we already learned about a legume when we learned about gynoecium types, because they typify that. And the thing about legumes is when they split, they split along potentially along two sutures, two lines. And our example of that, a lot of grocery store example, peas and beans, also the peanut, by the way. That was our fruit example. And there's a lot of wild examples. This is found principally in a family that's called the Fabaceae, Fabaceae. And did I go into detail about scientific names yet? Just to refresh your memory, or tell you for the first time. The family is the taxonomic unit that's very convenient to learn about characteristics of plants in general. Classification: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, then genus and species. So it's a group of related genera. And the way that you know that a certain word means it's a family is it ends in A, C, E, A, E. And the first part is the name of an important genus in it, or part of the name of an important genus in it. In this case, it's Faba, which is a big genus in the Fabaceae, so it's named after it. And that's where legumes are found. There's a couple of other related families that have been considered subfamilies, but basically a whole lot of similarities to the Fabaceae. So think about the fabulous Fabaceae when you think of legumes. And another fruit type that comes from a from one carpel. Sometimes it's a unicarpellate gynoecium, and sometimes it's a derivative of it. It's called a follicle. So a follicle, it's one carpel, and let's not quibble about the origin. But the thing about it that's distinctive is that instead of splitting along two sutures, it only splits along one. It splits along only one. And I don't think there's any grocery store follicles, but a milkweed seed pod. Pod is a very general term that means familiarly a fruit, I guess, a dry one. A milkweed pod. And so I think I'll draw one there. And here all the seeds are coming out. Great. What's left? What's left is kind of an oddball. And the oddball is this one here. And what it is there's actually two fruits that are sort of similar. It's called a Silique, or it's called a Follicle. And I say it, by what I mean is that this is the fruit of the grass, of the mustard family. And the mustard family is called the Brassicaceae. I'll write it here. And Brassicaceae. Maybe you've heard of brassica. It's referred to a lot in nutrition and stuff. Why did that just disappeared? And so this family is kind of an important family, and it turns out that they have a specially modified capsule. And it turns out that in the modified capsule of the Brassicaceae, there's a partition. And the partition, instead of dividing the fruit into two carpels, it kind of goes across the carpels. It's kind of a technical difference, and you'd have to look really carefully and follow it over the course of development to realize that. But because it's so special, it has a special name. And they differ in their shape only. A Silique is long and narrow. It's sleek, kind of shaped like a pencil. And the Follicle is short. Basically the same sort of thing, but in some plants we have these long, narrow pencil-like ones, and some we have these sort of heart-shaped ones. And those are the differences between the Silique and the Follicle. They're both modified capsules found only in one family, really important family, the Brassicaceae. Let's look at some pics. Right. Here's a picture of a legume. So these are the fruits. They are from a unicarpellate gynoecium. There's only one chamber inside. There's one row of seeds, and when it splits open, it can split along the margin of that ancestral carpel, and also the midvein of that ancestral carpel. This is a plant called wild Senna. And here's wild Senna in flower. Here's my fave fruit. It's a milkweed. I'm a milkweed fan. And it comes from a single carpel. And it splits open along one line. And here you can see it split open along one line, releasing some seeds. And there's some large milkweed bugs, Onchopeltis fasciatus, feasting on the milkweed seeds with their proboscis that pokes into them and digests the seeds. And here's a picture of a giant resin bee sipping the nectar from this flower of these milkweeds, this Sullivan's milkweed. Little background on milkweed pollination. If you look at that little circle that PowerPoint magically drew, it's drawing a circle around this little package of pollen. Instead of spreading pollen as individual grains like a dust the way most plants do, milkweeds and also orchids, which are basically wannabe milkweed wannabes, package their pollen in these little compartments, these little saddlebag-like compartments, these little agglutinated masses, and deliver them to female flowers and pollinate all the ovules inside all at once. It's called a pollinium. And Here's a picture on the left of a milkweed flower with the pollinium inserted in a special groove. And there's a picture on the right of the milkweed flower with a cross section. You can actually see there's two separate ovaries in there. And each one of those can mature into a fruit. And the fruit it matures into is a follicle. So here's these two pictures of follicles together. But if you look really carefully, the one on the left has one pedicel. That's the stalk of the individual flower. I'm going to go back a little bit and look on the right, and those two ovaries, each one of them is capable of developing into a fruit, a follicle. And the stalk of that flower, which is right below, it would be underneath the word cross section. When it's in fruit, it's supporting the fruits. And the one on the left, where it says twins, those are actually an instance where both of the ovaries, I'm going to go back again, see there's two ovaries, were fertilized and developed into fruits. Over on the right, you might recall or might know that milkweed flowers are presented in a sort of like a beautiful cluster with a lot of flowers on it. It looks like fireworks exploding. And the one on the right that has two fruits, but each one of them has its own pedicel. So those came from two separate flowers on the same flower cluster, and it's a different doubleness than the doubleness on the left. Hooray for milkweeds. Capsules. Capsules are very variable. There's a lot of different ways that they might open to release their seeds, but the important thing is that they do. And in this case, it's these terminal valves, I guess you would call them. Sometimes they can split along the sides. Sometimes they can be pores around the edge. It's kind of a nice name. It reminds me of like a pill bottle or something. This is a picture of the capsules of a kind of a pink called royal catchfly. It's related to carnations. And here is royal catchfly. And that picture, the grooved green thing below the petals, that's not the ovary, that's the calyx. The sepals are fused together. But inside, if you would just tear that apart, which wouldn't be too hard to do, you'd see a nice tubular ovary. Mustard fruits. They're called siliques. If it weren't for the sort of insider baseball anatomical peculiarity and the fact it's a really important family, we wouldn't be talking about siliques. It's a capsule, but it's just got a little peculiarity. There's a partition inside that kind of goes the wrong way. But these kind of fruits are fairly distinctive and recognizable. We'll see some in the field. And when they're long and narrow like this, it's called a silique. There are some mustards that have sort of short, sometimes they're like heart-shaped ones, little penny-like ones. They're called silicles. Same basic idea. So those are some dry fruits that oh yeah, I forgot the sequence here. And here is the mustard in flower. And incidentally, you can see in this this flowering arrangement is that in plants, the younger parts are at the tip. So if you look at the top of this, you see buds. And if you look away at the bottom, you see fruits. In the middle, you have these middle-aged jabroos. You have the flowers. And that's how plants grow, by adding cells at their tip. So they actually have young parts and old parts on the same plant. So those are the dry fruits that contain one or several seeds that split open to release them. Coming up next, we're going to learn about fleshy fruits. Hooray! So thanks for listening. Fruit out.